let's get to this on a whole nother level. Let's figure out what exactly is going on in the universe without any judgments, any hindrances, and just calling it as we see it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right now. I want to start here. I'm just going to go in order of the pictures because they say repetition is the best to learn something. So what I did was I grabbed a series of pictures that all actually are in some way related to each other, but in most cases the same thing. However, what you start to realize very rapidly is that you have other individuals, other corpses or the corpuses that have gotten themselves together and built their own blueprint or body. And it has different particulars to it, just like you see in certain countries. Different countries run certain ways, and the rulers and the leaders choose to run those countries in certain ways, right? So you're dealing with the same thing, but on a more macro scale, that what you'll find with the systems of knowledge is actually the core knowledge of Earth has always remained the same, meaning that if you can decrypt all of what you're seeing in an image, then you actually can see that this same image has been drawn throughout time in different ways. So I'm not gonna point out major things. I'm just gonna point out a series of things that all become the same thing. Let me put it like that. I'm gonna point out a series of things that all become the same thing. All right, so let's start. Now, it's important on this dimension to understand what this is, obviously, for any adept, right? And so I won't really get deep into talking about this, but to just reveal the symbol behind this, okay? And it's something that I've seen very few speak on because you cannot speak on it if you do not know about it. That's just how it works. You will be turned back void. But this symbol here actually makes this design. Excuse me, this mantra, this tone, this reverberation makes this design, okay? It's a cone. So if a cone breathes, okay, it then does, if we're looking at it on 3D, something like this, okay? So this is like a diagram of a cone breathing in 3D, thus bringing forth a word that creates things, okay? And then, so from that point, that is the Big Bang, because once the word is spoken, then everything else emanates from it, right? So the entire pantheon, all the way to the deep levels of the horned one. You see the horned here, right? Because that is the reflection, or supposed to be the shadow of God. Okay? And so these are the beasts that are about the throne, meaning the actual animal organisms that in genus that are used to make the vessels and the bodies. Okay? And as it continues to radiate, even into, they show a different dimension into a physical world, it also replicates as other people, other entities, other life forms, okay? So this is very, very easily understood, and I'm gonna have to blow this up here a little bit, but this is very easily understood, okay? When you get your third eye open. And it's because the phenomena of the third eye actually creates a light in your mind, multiple kinds of lights that you can actually project. You're doing it now, but you can't see it. So when you close your eyes, most people, they see black. But some people actually see colors. And the trained adept sees an entire world, sees worlds. Because you can push off light. And this gets into a very deep, deep secret about especially beings that can actually push off physical light, a shining one. Meaning that you're looking at, someone in a corner and they're actually glowing. And it's because that they've jumped off their energy center so high that they're now bioluminescent, okay? But the interesting thing about this state is that you actually don't need a sun. You don't need lux, okay? Because lux is actually the cult of Lucifer, luxury. Lux is the light. Now notice the physical light, okay? Notice how when the light goes down, basically when the sun goes down, the sun is the real sham, the real ship, because it's the only one moving. The moon is a dead ship. It was hit and knocked out of alignment, and it was destroyed. It was crippled. Okay, it lost its generative principle. So the moon is Osiris. Okay, so Lux or light is a sham, or also another ship that actually makes the entities that are living underneath it be under dominion of it because of its brilliance. Okay, and then that brilliance and rays of shining develop all of what we see in this world, because it inspires man and woman when they wake up. They wake up in the morning to that. So when most people are asleep, then, meaning that when it's nighttime, 80% of the people when it's night are asleep because they are waiting on something else in order to be awake, in order to give off light. Because the reason is that as they're looking around, everything is dark unless they turn on a physical light, but generally in the sky it's dark. Not to the adept. The adept sees light. When in the physical reality, as your chakra opens, you have to put sunglasses on. This is so much light, most people are blinded by the light. Meaning that the bend on their eye, the actual bend, the word I'm looking for is almost there. It has core on it, because that's always a core, is always circular and seen as a sphere. But we'll just say the cortis, okay? That this area, when being overexposed to light, it damages it. It can't actually see certain things. And that's why I was explaining to people, look, there's other beings that live here. Like, it's just when you turn on your body, when you turn on these chakra centers, they're like old wheels, like clock wheels. They clank, 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 clank. And that's why we start with the root chakra, because when the root chakra makes one movement, the other chakras can really spin a lot, because the root chakra has a lot of power and energy to it. So, but it's still in most systems, when the one wheel starts to try to turn, if there's teeth broken, and that's why I'm going to show you some more diagrams here. You'll notice here that there's teeth on this like a cog, but let's go to another picture because it's a lot more explanatory. Okay? Actually, we're just going to keep flying through this. That way you can get the level of the vastitude, that's a new word, of what we're presenting here. So let's go again and then just drop this in here. Boom. And then here we are. So what I was explaining about these immortal worlds of Charlemagne is that once they got the knowledge from the covenants and the knowledge of the ark from Mary of how to build a world, they built the world. And they call that world, in a sense, the body of their Christ. Okay? Because why this may not be where things began, this is a blueprint of exactly how you begin these micro worlds. And I'm trying to blow up here so you can see what's going on. Okay? So I'm giving you enough of this, right? I'm telling you, like, our archives, like the WikiLeaks of spirituality. Okay? This is the body. But this body is nothing new. Like, in fact, this is one of the more recent ones, and it's highly flawed because of the geometry that's being used. But I just wanted to give you an example of these diagrams as we go back in time. Like, I personally thought that we would go from the end to the beginning, but that's not how things are lined up. They're lined up to go from now back to history, to show you that it's the same thing going on. Let me move over to this and see if this will work better or do what I needed to do. There we go. This seems to work better. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is, as we continue to go, is that these bodies that you see, excuse me, maybe you're not even realizing that these are bodies yet, and that's why I did want to start from a certain place, but we'll go with it. What I want to explain to you is that the diagrams that you're looking at here are of bodies that exist on the spiritual plane that have designed themselves with the components that they've gained the knowledge of how to build from the ancient teachings of how to design a living organism. So this was known as like forbidden knowledge because it brought the impossible into existence. So if you can imagine a subjective plane, no one's talking, no one's dividing itself, nothing thinks it's there, nothing is, it's all knowing, it's even beyond consciousness, like it's in another whole space and time, and no gravity, etc., right? Like our wildest dreams, but still not even that. And now you start to see the knowledge is revealed about the geometry of the chakra, right? Because you could see the Maltese in there, right? If you're looking at it, you could see it, right? But what you're observing then is that, because I'm telling you about the world, that the strongest mind wins. That's why it's only going to take 1% of us. When the mind conceives a greater design, this design folds up inside of it. And that's what you're about to witness with the transformation of this world, the metamorphosis. Okay? Because this body will be consumed. This geometry will fold up on itself like a Russian doll. And a more brilliant design will come forth. But realize where you're at, because some people say, well, when? Give us a date. When you're ready, when you're lined up. When your lineup happens. This is non-linear. But you're in a kingdom of the immortal Charlemagne only because when they put forth their decree or bulls through the land, the by bulls, millions of people, billions of people believe in a certain projection of a certain configuration, because that's what you then begin to deal with. A world builder has configurations, right? You're using configurations. Now, let's go to further back. I'm glad we did it. We started in the beginning because that actually allowed people to see it in a spectrum they may understand, because they now see that their churches and their priests and all this are using a system that comes from an ancient tradition, and you needed to be tightened down to be dealing with this, meaning that you needed to be in a whole different state of consciousness than where the Western tradition is now in them developing their own world. Like, you can't bring a baby in, because this is literally what they've done. Like, all these are really babies. You would see them as, people looking at these diagrams, they don't know what to think. These are babies. They're all bodies that are have incubations going on in them, and in themselves they're incubating. It's the hologram with the one thing missing. So when you see diagrams like this in attendance, don't be intimidated, because not only is this you, this is actually inside of you, showing your status and level of power. That's why the body is outside, right? Meaning that we have this biolocal ability to defeat gravity and then put ourselves, let me check my sound here, okay, and then put ourselves in and out of something simultaneously, a jumper and a catcher, a human and an oversoul. This is what you're actually dealing with. And so let's keep going, because some may just be looking at a diagram like, okay, all I see is the symbol. No, I'm sure there's some very intelligent people on the line, but notice the symbol of the swastika, because I don't want to miss anything here, okay? What is the swastika saying here? Why is it here? Especially since there's no Nazis running around. And it's because this is a point of energy. Because there's things I want to reveal to you over time in these charts. Not everything, but some things. But the points of energy is one of the main things today. You do have this point in the center of your hand, just as sure, because remember, here, then, okay, and let me get some ink, okay. There is a pentagram here in the hand, okay, because it's 5 fingers, 3, 4, 5. So this means a spiral is in the hand. So where is its implosion point? And that's where it is in your hand. You can push it in there and you feel it, but that's where you emit energy from. Okay? Here's our Muladhara chakra, the root. Okay? Notice who's watching. But anyway. And the delta, right? And so we're going to keep going. Okay, now, this is to get it in your mind enough that, so there's this micro-macro thing going on. So you can literally be inside of another body while also simultaneously being outside of the body. So this is why it was always denoted that in the inner body that there was these kingdoms and there was these rulers and there was these gates and there was these beings and deities. And the lower that you went down, notice how, and I just want you to understand this is what you see right here, because I have to explain this particular area because it's where many have unfortunately found themselves, especially in their state of consciousness. That here is the world of the serpents, the lower state of consciousness, etc., biorhythm, the frequencies that control the foundation, okay? Then there's even other worlds down here with humans or beings that have their own kingships. And then even below there, you see more of the Nagas, okay? And then you see the stream of life, okay? So what it's actually explaining, because there's ways to explain these charts in a way that you're not looking for the good and evil here. What you're looking for is how and which to implode. How is life begot, destroyed, and brought forth again? So I can go into the bathroom, quirk, do that in a quick process, regenerate, and actually come up front and center to do tomorrow's show. You see what I mean? With magnificent energy and brilliance and insight to do that, and enough to light resplendent, to be a sun to other beings that are yet trying to light the sun inside themselves. Did you not understand exactly what I was saying about that? We have this power that we can shine, actually, physically. And at night, it's so strong that there's no nighttime. Then Lux, who is luxury, the cult of luxury, the cult of sculpting and facets and shaping and diamonds. Exactly, right? So luxury then sees true beauty, because luxury or lux is a false light, falsiforus, Lucifer, right? So this is the whole game then. The cult of luxury or lux, tenebris, generating its broken, shattered worlds of pieces of light that it keeps judging which ones it wants to show and who it wants to show it to. It can't light the entire night and daytime. Meaning that is the shady side of it. Literally, Shaddai is a sham, a ship. Go to the Arabs. They'll tell you that the sham is like a dynamo of energy that is two concave triangles interlacing upon themselves, right? So let me finish the chart here. So what you see is kingdoms, and then you always find kings, right? Also being controlled by other entities, okay? And then you find this whole border system, which is what exists now in our world. Like, you want to go to Switzerland right now? You want to go to Africa right now, or Akibalan right now? You want to go to Madagascar? There's all types of certificates you need. One of the main certificates is money. It's a certificate. So you need tons of those certificates to show that you're ready to you can even go there, right? Because there's all these regions in this dividing and divisions, but you have to see that some can live off bacteria. Some can live off the most filthy things. The entities that we're facing in this world now live in the sewers. As a sidebar, don't throw your hair and your fingernails into the toilet. Like, some people say, what are you talking about? I said, man, just trust me on this one. Don't put your biorhythm in a place that is going to go where there's lots of stagnant, chaotic biorhythms. Throw it back into nature. Like, listen to what I'm saying. I'm literally telling you the keys of how to emancipate yourself from these kingdoms of these entities. And I can't tell you enough that instead of seeing them as physical beings, because you won't see them in physicality with physical eyes, you need a third eye. They are energies, and how energies manifest to beings on the physical plane is through ideas. Okay? So if you follow the ideas of what these individuals are talking about, is what their level of spirituality is, and who's really God, and who's in control, then you end up in this. This, as I brought forth before, is what's called the blueprint, the new blueprint or template to set up the altars and the temples in each human's body, psyche, and consciousness through multiple channels, whether it be religion, whether it be time, whether it be through months, dates, stars, pentagrams. Understand, you are here with other humans that instead of teaching you what this all means, they're using it against you, and they understand what it means. And then now at one point in your existence, don't make this your climax, please. But at one point in your existence, something happens where you happen to be present, because remember, out of the 300 people or 250 people that are alive right now, it is not even counting the billions that are in the world on a physical level, but on a spiritual level, of course it is. Of course that it only takes for a few. I saw it said how many people had friends in the show? 144. Maybe there's something in that number, but remember, this is 144. And you're looking at the knowledge that controls the world. Look, they show you it's not just all occult. Control the brain. Control the poles of the brain, right? Set up the altars of consciousness. It's Wonderland. Alice, now you're in all ice. The serpents are all around, meaning that the foundational energies, dark matter. Do you know, I was in a state of consciousness the other night, and it was pouring in so heavy. I learned the most powerful thing was not to think or to say anything. But in between that, it showed me the danger and the ultimate power of dark matter. It said that, and I'm saying this as it being my oversoul, no other entities, but all entities gathered within themselves. It said, notice what the deal is with dark matter. See, dark matter is a force that can be turned into anything. That's why it was sought after so much. It was like, instead of metal, like steel, yttrium, osmium only have specific uses, great uses, but there's a range of what it can do. Just like there's a range of how fast you can run, right? So on a deeper level, something more massive is going on. And let's look at the chart. Down here. Right? Division brings someone close to this area. Look at, say, the Muladhara. Fire. Okay? I'm going to take one of these legs. I'm going to take one of these roles. Because what I'm talking to you also about, because, maybe somebody thinks that I'm talking about fleshly things and how you're supposed to be a male or female. I'm talking about inside of your body. If you cannot pair the energies together, then you cannot create. Okay? Creating. Now, a lot of people are creating now. So how many, people have children. So when do you get to a point of understanding how to create something perfect? Like, when is humanity actually going to get to a level where it starts creating these perfect children? Because it knows how to shape, form, and fashion. It knows about the cones. It knows about the convex, the concave. It knows about the third eye. It knows about the advanced state of consciousness, right? So then, because once it gets to that point, then it knows about the energy, right? This is a water molecule. This is where life comes from. Notice, sun dries up water. I think there's this whole bigger level that's becoming available for us to become sons. Now remember, the interesting thing about this pattern is it shows us, because even the sun attempts to replicate this pattern. Sometimes it's 8-point star, sometimes it's 6-point star, depending on the lens. But with water, you see the generator embedded within water. So this shows you once again that inside of yourself, there are these two polarities. in the physical reality, how this actually acts out is how we treat what is diametrically opposed to us, our opposites, for man, woman, for woman, man. And ad infinitum, because then, this is why I'm trying to get you to see a deeper level, and as I challenge you first with seeing if you could become the opposite sex, but it's actually, when you really think about it, what about the animals? Even our sheer act, and this is already in the annuals, the sheer act of eating the animals is itself literally contributing to killing ourselves. It's happening on all multiple dimensions. Not only one, can you not process the food, but animal, as I just showed you before in the diagram, is a massive part of what is encased inside of this. Like, where do certain organs and pieces really come from, and what other organisms are connected to them? So if we don't have this mutual respect, and we're just allowing ourselves to keep replicating, but our replication is done without communication, meaning that we can't talk to our children, we can't talk to these beetles, we can't talk to any of this kind of stuff. If we don't understand what it's actually saying and how to communicate with it, then that would mean oblivion approaches. So someone then has to be the bridge, the converger, okay? And so we're getting into the next part of this, okay? Because, after looking at it and looking at the geometry on it and a couple other things, I decided that I was 100% convinced, even though I don't believe that the carrier should be audio, like you can go deeper than that, but that 528 hertz signifies a convergence point which actually functions as a bridge through multiple states of consciousness that are otherwise not connected to each other. And the reason why is because 528 hertz, when put inside of a cymatic device, will always render this pattern. And that this is the same pattern that appears when the third eye is opening. And that is 100% confirmed. And that this concave triangle mesh HUD goes over the reality that you're looking at, and then actually separates the spaces by colors, allowing you to be in perception of even different shades of black, different shades of green, thus fully being able to see what is here across timelines, all in one space. And that we are in a world where individuals have known this knowledge for prolonged periods of time, and instead of allowing us to emancipate ourselves out of this matrix and into a higher stage of consciousness, they have chosen to use it as some form of slavery, where the power, instead of becoming our ally, is become our enemy. And that we have taken knowledge that could heal worlds. And let's get that camera on me for a second, Jason. When you're taking knowledge that could heal worlds and have destroyed worlds, I come here to tell you that there are even polarizations within the planets, meaning that the planet Venus, which you're looking at the poles of Venus, is primarily feminine and traces out a pentagram in the sky. And that has a major connection with the organisms that exist here and live here on this planet, showing that each planet has a specific function. And so I will tell you now maybe why we have not got this information. And that will be really the close of today's message, and then also I'll take some questions. It appears after a long research that I have discovered that there are other life forms that do indeed intend to enslave all other forms of life who would rather be free and do not exercise control of the other life forms, even though they can. Meaning that we all do possess a level of energy and power. But that was the biggest importance of respect. Because at any point when you disrespected me, then that meant that you felt that your power was greater than mine. And then that started a battle. And that's what you see in the codes of the samurai in the codes and the creeds of even ancient cultures, that you do not disrespect anyone's culture, anyone's creed, true culture, true creed, true inheritance, to petri dish, meaning true fertilization and foundation to where we come from. Do not unseat where we come from. Okay, so that's where the respect lies. If someone disrespected, that's why it says that the Brihaspati was offended by Indra. Okay, and this is an interesting moment though, because it becomes the catalyst to an entire greater creation coming about. Because some people are about to do duality. Show me who did it, I'll go get him, I'll go get Jupiter. But you don't get that even the grand universe said, man, we'll create a great conflict, codenamed Big Bang. All the gods through all the beings supreme through one disrespectful movement will come on alignment with each other. And then we'll have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, meaning no doubt, no physicality in the thought of who you are as a supreme being before they can return to the state before the Big Bang, which is also known as the impossible, the unbegotten. It is the great reward. Right? They're not talking about, this is not biblical, only a religious tradition, okay? This is mathematics, this is physics. It all leads to these specific points. And you've seen in history, and I've given you some information today, and I've given you a great deal of knowledge, and you've seen that in history that mankind, woman, animal, whatever, dolphin, has only been able to do as much of with dark matter as we've done right now at this moment. This should bring you present, right? And that if we would simply look around us and look at the people around us, look at the things that we have, look at the things that we know, look at those talents, and to ask ourselves, are those talents invested properly? Are they invested in things that actually will connect as above and so below? Or are they in forms in which you cannot access their energy? Do you need to dump your cash, C-A-C-H-E, because your drives are too full? You see what I mean? Like all these different things, are the numbers making you numb is what I'm saying. And if that happens to be true, then you can see where the world could use your distributions. Meaning that look at the world and look at the children and look at where they are. What you do does change worlds. Especially with you knowing this kind of information, because it guides you. Like it is a shield. Like nothing can come against you, but you just absorb it. It's like, what? You see something terrible coming at you, like, what are you doing? And it's like one of those movies that just comes up and it licks you. Because here's why. The greatest level of fear, and let's get that on big screen, existed with the entities known as the archons. And the identity of the archons has been one that has been hidden from this world, especially on any kind of level of knowing who they are visually. And this is because that the tradition of who is the Kagan, who is the Kohen, the Kagan is the one who speaks for any kind of kingdom, right? The one who brings forth the edicts and decrees, the bridges in language, right? Would need to be installed in order for the communications to reach forth throughout all lands. Meaning that what communication is a bridge. And that's why when you move to higher systems of communication, when you move into frequencies, when you move into sound, shape, color, when you paint, when you glyph, when you bring that form of communication into play, that is when you graduate yourself in a tense on the cogs of time, in order to see things as they really are, like you're standing in front of it before you merge with it. Who is it? It's you. In the greatest stage of times, it shows that there were, in fact, extraterrestrials here. But this is now called extraterrestrial because the stage of consciousness of these beings is completely foreign to ours. Now, let's just say they chose more of the everything than most people. And that the male of that species had in itself a womb for an inception, meaning that it was known that through the ancient times, that man had a womb, and that he or she, or whatever you want to term it as, Shem or Sham, could generate. Okay? And so this is a deeper level of knowledge that's been hidden, because it's actually the power. And today we'd be addressing the males, but we could do it with the females next week when we get into the Mari Pura chakra. Okay? So what you're seeing here is that the king, let me get that in here, Rex, chose to use its chakra, its world, its incubator, to bring forth the diabolical one. Okay? So what you're witnessing here today is something that you'll never see until after today. And it's that the knowledge eventually led to another stage of being. And even as they say, well, Akhenaten had a larger stomach because he had some kind of genetic disorder. That's not what the ancient annals say. The ancient annals say that Akhenaten, who is a 10, meaning I'm a 10, I am a man and a woman, had a womb. And that these were different type of beings, more advanced type of beings. Okay? We're not necessarily saying more advanced than us, but we're saying sentient. But just remember, once again, that when you go into the Eastern tradition and you keep digging and digging and digging and digging, you'll get that there were other planets functioning, and that there was one known as Zervan, who became known later as Saturn, who was also a Time Lord, but not just a Time Lord that just implodes, but had an explosion, meaning had a ship of some type. And that those in the retinue of that ship and the ones in which they were with, et cetera, did get involved in the planet Earth in its stages of metamorphosis. And that is the truth. And that's why they say Sat is the highest truth. The foundation to physical worlds. Okay? Where this knowledge of the cube, how the knowledge of the cube or the incubator passed into this world. Now think about it. I don't gotta go and show you pictures of Saturn's hexagonal pole, but there are stories that Saturn was once a sun. But here's the last part of the mystery. Okay? This is something that you will indeed never see, because it actually was copied out of a book that my mother gave me. And it was called The Treasures of Russia. I've tried to find this book on the internet, but it just so happens that it was a special edition from Peterhof. And it was sponsored by, I believe, Coca-Cola. And what they did was they went inside of the castles and they took images of things that were never photographed before, but they were part of the old aristocratic Tsar days of Russia. Now remember, I explained to you before that the first Tsar cult was ZAR in Sudan with the matriarch, and that those who later on became the founders of Rome took the knowledge and tried to make themselves Tsars just like the women. And that's why the judges began to wear dresses and all these different things where there was a cross in gender. And then that all of the Masons and these individuals in the highest stages believed in the hermaphrodite of Akhenaten, that man had another stage of his evolution that meant that he could have a womb if he had developed himself properly. And this became the story of the Immaculate Golden Lotus, or the story of the Immaculate Conception within a man, okay? And so, again, I'm just giving you a major part of the bigger keys to the entire saga, okay? And these are big pieces that fit into something that once you start connecting the whole thing, it equals entirely more than what I'm saying, especially once you get rid of your judgments. But what I'm also saying is that the sun actually became synonymous. The sun that we see in the sky, the Sham, became synonymous with being the serpent. While the inner sun of the world, in the core, the sun that's not really hot, the thing that this sun is actually a reflection of, was known as more of the benevolent force. And this is just when I'm explaining you what our ancestors seem to have discovered. And that this external sun reigned as king. And remember, this is all metaphor, but maybe on a deeper level does have to do with energies. Because what I noticed was, after we figured out that God was a weapon, I realized that there were races of people running around the planet threatening people all the time with the weapon and a nuclear weapon all the time and that kind of behavior, meaning that if there is a superhuman, which there is, then that means that the superhuman runs the possibility of being the threat, like Dr. Manhattan, of other races, right? Because there's this whole thing that goes on in this world that when something new does come forward, then something tries to harness it as an energy or see if they can use it as a weapon. And then over a prolonged period of time, if it becomes a superior weapon, it becomes worshipped because people work. Remember, work and war are the same word. They work to maintain the weapon of war because that is the God that they trust because it protects them. It is the enforcer. When somebody doesn't want to do what they want, especially if it's a Naga, they drop an explosion at the strength of 1,000 suns on top of it. You see what I mean? And thus ripping time. You see? And then putting that being into a state of implosion because the envelopment sucks in, right? So, excuse me. What you're dealing with here is Solomon. Now, the mug says, as you can see here clearly, let's move this over. On the body of the mug, a bas relief entitled Solomon and Queen of Sheba on the lid. Love conquering time. Right? So do you need to be the Riddler to know what it means to conquer time? Now, first of all, Solomon and the Queen of Sheba become one of the deepest codes because neither one of them are their real name. Neither term is their real name. The Queen of Sheba surely is not Sheba. The Queen of Sheba's name is not Sheba. She's the Queen of Sheba. So what is her name? And, if you study with me, the name is Belkis, the Lord Kiss. Okay? And the Lord Kiss was supposedly a hoofed god. Okay, kind of like the metaphor of the Baphomet somewhat a little bit. And then you have Solomon, which is a cognate, they say, of the three sons, right? But even deeper than that, if you ever have this, which is like a piece to many people who are doing a lot of research, if you have this image, you'll notice that Solomon is depicted here as a reptile. Now then, how is it, 200 years ago, and again, shown in this picture, Solomon is shown commanding demons from the throne, okay? Because I'm quite adept at this kind of symbolism and this knowledge, I was able to immediately see that was Cassiel. And Cassiel happens to be the angel of Saturn, and it rides astride a dragon. So this whole story then of, there is magic and this magical lure and these entities that are playing games with human consciousness because they do have access to other realms and different kind of knowledge, is true. But the reality is that you're so much more massive because you're here at this point. Like that's where your age is. And that's why when you see our children, they're the oldest of us. Remember that. Our children are the oldest of us. They're the ones coming back. So even some of these primordial beings like, against Dr. Quasar, or you see, when you access in your mind, because you have so much to draw from now, like you've seen internet, how much magnificent power you really have, you don't face no challenge. When do you see someone running up to someone they know that they cannot defeat? So imagine this on a spiritual plane. As a resplendent being, and this means you're all connected in wholeness, nothing is actually trying to come against that. It's not physically in physics possible. It's actually only trying to merge with you, to get you to accept just a part of what you really are so that you can get to the next stage. Whoever said to stay at one point? This is my biggest qualm with the entire spiritual movement and the rest of the things going on the planet, is that everyone's always like, they're imagining balance has something to do with standing still. Balance is not achieved by standing still. It's achieved by going back and forth so fast that it's a blur. Thus, it creates a bridge. That's balance. You see what I mean? So that in its realest tense. And so what I'm saying is that if we fail to keep looking, then all of this stuff that I'm showing you today becomes odd. Yet the people who are forming and fashioning, this is Königsberg, Germany, but the people who are forming and fashioning your reality know about all of this. They know about controlling time. They know Solomon was the serpent sat, who was Zervan. It was the time lord that he moved throughout time, using the same vortex mathematics that Marco Rodin revealed, hopping in a phone booth like a time lord, coming out in different stages, mainly during the conflicts of mankind, popping up when Constantine is at the brink of losing his damn mind so that he can get at another stage of creating a world that he doesn't even know how it's all designed and what it's all about. And then that same entity show up to Alexander the Great since he was a little kid and metamorphosize him, and then probably that same entity roll up on Malcolm X 2,000 years in the future while he's in a prison cell, and then that same entity will even roll up on you if you don't understand what the hell and understand what the hell is really going on. Really, that hell is going on. That this dimension, as long as it remains in this kind of stage, is like hell with no fire. Thus, it freezes over. It's like a weird stage of stasis where it's neither hot nor cold. It's like Midgard. And so what I'm encouraging you to do today is to access who you really are as a spiritual being. To look deeper into what you see as sound, rhyme, reason, and mystery. And to see if in that you did not witness yourself. And anything that seemed to look confusing, do consider if it's new. Because that's where, when the mind is in darkness, things are going to come from out of that darkness. Right? So this is what we're talking about. So let me look again. I'm actually not going to take any questions today, because today was really a complete message. It's really something more I would like people to think about. I'm going to show a couple images here just to make sure I go through my folder really rapidly, but I wanted to show you how it happens all in all cultures. It's not just one culture. Here's the Yggdrasil. This is the tree. This is exactly what these other diagrams are that I'm showing you. You see this one here? It's just a more graduated version of this, okay? And here's another way of proving that. Let's see what I got here. Are these on mine? Okay, yeah, there's actually a few things that I need to really go through in here. So let me just finish with that. And I actually had some more. I'm not sure if it's in my chakra diagrams folder. It may be, but I guess I have to, again, be very repetitious and explain to man again and woman again what you really are, especially together. The beginning and the end, us coming together equals this. Fully generative being, okay? So I'm going to explain this to you, this album, because it was something I wanted to present today. So again, you see this. This is the phi-based energy running through the body based on the oscillation and rotations of the planets. The planets themselves in conflict, giving us the term universe, meaning united in conflict. In their oscillations between each other, like they're perpetual, their conflicts of when they brush up against each other with magnetic and electric forces, create what we know as the body of the cosmos. That same knowledge, thousands of years in the future, was turned into an exoteric metaphor, even a dream, not even a reality, of an individual named Daniel, who actually spoke the entire diagram of what the microcosmic, macrocosmic human really looks like, but from a stage of zoomorphication, meaning as animals. And this is because that the human being, within all of their essence, does actually contain everything. And that means the other living life forms around us, And that also requires us to have a certain level, if not the highest level of respect for them, especially within their sacred act of living, as we are all living, doing the impossible. Here again, it shows you that the system of the human being is more charted out, the same as what you see in Chinese acupuncture or also in bioenergetics, which is that each part of the human being, especially their pores, because their pores are ports, their nose and any holes in their body actually make up spaces that things enter and exit. When those things do enter, they do incubate and they do birth and bring forth life. On a simple level, there's at least thousands of entities living on the surface of our skin, and we are not aware of them, and they are probably aware of us every time we wash our hands. Here again, you see that instead of there just being 7 chakras, that some have even spread it out into a system of 21 chakras. This means 7 worlds above, which are obviously to develop later on as a person gets into a higher state of consciousness, and also 7 worlds below, also known as the netherworld or the world below the waist, which at the feet contain the serpents, which are the roots and the foundation to our existence, or one strand DNA. Also, you do see the body divided, that it actually contains a pair of itself, and that actually lets you know the stage in which humans in as a 2 or in the dual plane or as a deuce. But as a deuce containing the pattern of a cone, and that cone allowing there to be a tone or tone played from each vibratory organ of the body, also known as a chakra. And that these chakras playing their tone and vibration give the human an orchestra or a level of energy that they play unique and individual to the reality, thus making up the entire reality spectrum. And that the knowledge itself of how to operate this system had been in the hands of the ancients since the time that they arrived. But that the ancients that I am referring to seem themselves to be what we would call extraterrestrial. That they in themselves chose more of everything than what the human is choosing today, and blended themselves and acted out as multiple energies in existence. That this knowledge of the human being in this stage is passed throughout the entire world, meaning that it's not one culture, whether it be the lightest of skin to the darkest of skin, that was in, I would say that there was no culture that did not possess this knowledge in some form, whether they understood it, or should I say understood it or not. That even our culture today, even our creed today, whatever culture or ilk it may be in, actually are in possession of the knowledge that we are a universe, showing you that the same thing can prevail throughout time, that maybe throughout time, no matter how advanced you are or think you are, you may not choose to use the real knowledge that you may have neglected and may have been lost to you. Again, that this knowledge of being supreme is not a myth and not a way to gas you up. We are not asking for your money or asking for you to do anything beside wake up, because that's going to actually help every single organism on the planet, including yours truly. This knowledge again shows that the human body is a dynamo, and that in most cases, those energies needing to actually ignite the dynamo are diametrically opposed to one another. And that you, as the guardian of that planet or that planetary system or state of consciousness, must bring that planetary system or state of consciousness into balance before you graduate, thus collapsing the senses that you've been using upon themselves in order to gain a higher, more collected sense, aka hear-seeing. Okay? But without merging, you cannot leave the galactic region, because the only way to witness everything is to, in fact, be it. Once again, that there in our ancient cultures in recent history, including the Mayans, had already been able to designate every single part of their body with the actual animal that contained the essence and genus of what that part of the body really stood for, showing that it doesn't take a rocket scientist or an individual working at CERN to comprehend that all is one, all is self. That the knowledge, once again, was usurped by none other than the king, Rex Mundi, who today runs under the faction of the Jesuit or the Company of Jesus, have taken the knowledge and created a false world that does not power those that are involved in it, meaning that the ones who worship, who's really Apollonius of Tyana, as you see Apollo here on the throne, that under the image of Jesus, who is really Apollonius, studying under Pythagoras, the knowledge of the pentagram, that old serpent, actually created a new world, a shadow world, a world of shades or ghosts or myths, where archons exist, which are just ideas, nothing real, stirring a person, giving a person an opportunity to go into great stages of psychosis or cycles, meaning lost in a maze, the Minotaur trapped, okay? And then once again, another culture, the same bodies. And that these bodies were seen in the sacred emblem of the yoni and the phallus, the pistol and the mortar, the same thing used to grind herbs and to blend them together. That's the shape of the pistol and mortar, but this obviously was the lingam and the Shiva lingam and the yoni. And this again symbolizes the two interlacing triangles. It's just another way of drawing it. As we come to a close here, we skim through a few more pictures through cultures of where the same thing pervades. The body is a universe. How many different ways can they tell you other beings are living inside of you? You can be invaded. You must get back to the throne of your consciousness, sit in the seat, become the sun that shines forth yourself, and do not take the false light or the illusion, meaning the lies, that you are not that. Okay? Once again, showing the tattvas and the sattvas, which are basically the positions that correspond with the body, unlocking different levels of their innerverse. So there was, at one point, we had gotten so high into the consciousness that we had even figured out how to get into different stages of our own advancement through how we formed and shaped our body. Because a flexible body is indeed a flexible mind and allows one to discover the inner recesses of themselves. That humans are themselves, and the only term that we could use is the Russian doll. That the planets themselves collapse into the human being and lay dormant themselves in the human being, waiting to be awakened. Our good friend G.H. Reeves, despite what people may say, he still reveals some knowledge that was just mind-blowing. Even made an attempt to draw out what the actual body, where the body was positioned, the more macro body on the actual planet itself. To realize that there is a way to draw these charts out circular. So in many cases later on, the knowledge to encrypt it further was drawn in a two-dimensional level to where it was a circle, thus giving us today what we know as the zodiac. And that this actually is an image of the sky as the zodiac, proving that those lights that are out in the sky actually are really inside of us and are only reflecting off of us, just as the sun in the center of the earth is, that the sun in our world is reflecting off of the sun in the center of the earth. The real galactic core. That the Enneagram, which actually is a solfeggio, was full of entities that themselves bared certain vibrations. This is zoomorphication to understand the actual position and the frequencies of each deity, but the deity themselves being a cognate of a specific force that's necessary to generate life from 1 to 9. That the circular diagrams even brought forth within the aristocratic times bear the same things, that the same diagrams that I've been showing you earlier today about the chakra body is actually here, but not drawn as well, because again, they were still learning about the knowledge rather than knowing exactly what they were dealing with. That all life forms spread out like trees. So for us to remember once again that before you just consider the human family, consider all the families, because at some point there's always a conjunction, and that those who work heavily at bridge building have indeed secured themselves a very secure future in the astral projected plane, meaning that if you wanted to know what astral position is the one in most demand, it is that of the bridge. Once again, bringing it to where it wasn't something that, again, you've seen in the Eastern traditions. They always try to say, oh, yeah, those people were crazy. We got rid of them. They were so crazy about what they believed in, and then all of it was false. That's why we started Christianity and blah, 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 blah. But recognizing the artwork and recognizing the actual Greek entities, you actually see that there was still a replication in itself of the charts that we've seen earlier, a half-hearted replication once again, but that becoming the main pantheism that we're dealing with today in the popular religions. But again, if there was a greater understanding, looking at one of these diagrams versus looking at one of those that are 2,000 years earlier, it can't even be compared. But then it gets more rudimentary to a point where there is now a move that's made to make it as if every person on the earth is just a part of a tribal system of 12 tribes. And with the missing 13th tribe, remember there's always one missing. But the same thing you see here, that now there's 12 tribes, meaning that there's 12 positions on the zodiac, right? And then those 12 tribes are man, woman, divided into 12 parts. So this time you're Libra, Scorpio, whatever, and then you bear the traits of that. I mean, it's not something that you can really argue with zodiacal accuracy of how it can control a person's traits. But then also the graduated states of consciousness is when you understand how to metamorphosize those traits, meaning actually blend them in to make them more perfected. Obviously, again, crude systems, crude levels of the same system. We're getting here. We got about 3 more pictures left. Now, this is when it's been completely taken material. This is the same system, but now you see instead of the snakes and the roots, it is the people. And then it is the ones who dine off of them, and et cetera, all the way up to the king, and then the god being money. Okay? Then back to the body. What a great polarity. But you see in the bottom, elimination. Elimination. Do you see what we're dealing with here? Okay, my mouse is showing on the screen. If this is the bottom, and this is the bottom, right? So this is how these blueprints really work. They're all just meshed on top of each other, appearing as something different. Let me check my sound here. Okay, great. We're almost at the end here. But you see, understand your body. Get into your body and actually get in there, and you reign as king over your own body. Stop eating things that are actually tearing your body up. Stop sitting around all day and not building up more oxygen in the blood. Let's make the body, like, push it. You could talk to the body, like you could just go right at it. Like, look, I just, the way we're handling things, it's just not going to work out. And already I've heard of higher and greater things. So either you go there with me or I'm going to end up getting there anyway. So you need to make a decision, because we're about to go outside and we're about to go work out. And we're about to, clean out this refrigerator. And then we're about to go and get some of these supplements that can get this kundalini and this prana flowing so I can burn up some of these toxins. And then I'm already going into a higher stage of consciousness. So I don't even need to start thinking about what I'm going to do. I just need to get active and busy, because it's not a genie in a bottle, people. It manifests. It's just as sure as physics. Once you start raising your personal vibratory frequency, you go into the principalities of your own states of consciousness. And then you get all the way to the principalities and you come back down again. And it's not like you're losing or it's a loss. You're actually gaining more energy and more power by continuously planting more seeds that you've gained from these higher regions and states of consciousness, aka known as ideas. So again, to finish this off, understand that there was more of a popular thought that saw all the teachings that we're now witnessing today as Christianity as more of the galactic connection that man and woman has with the solar system. So that just after a certain point, it became less popular. Obviously by suggestion. And that finally this chart here, which is symbols of alchemy, and I'll blow this up a little bit. The only other picture that was here was actually the transit of Venus, but everyone's pretty much aware of that. But notice here then, now alchemy is very integral, and it's very encoded and encrypted because it was put together by a group of individuals mainly that understood the knowledge and the power of the transmutation of the body, but also understood the danger of that knowledge falling into the hands of the wrong individuals, which I don't believe that they were able to completely prevent. But what it's about is that it's the body, because each organ, each valve in our body, like if you notice in the alchemical process, there are different kinds of glass work. In the shapes of those glasses, okay, are, if you have the best glass, it's actually the shape of that particular canal or that particular opening in the body. So to realize that inside of your mind there are these I'm looking for one word here. They're like bulbs, but I'm looking for a specific word because there's a specific word for it. But anyway, what you have inside of your body is you have these different areas that are shaped like bulbs. Okay, you would need to blow glass to be able to make something as perfect as what is inside the body, because all the air, like the air you take in, the cold air, it goes down into different chambers and it gets compressed and it turns into different things. So notice how this picture, again, it's alchemical treaty, but it's actually showing first the hearth, right? And then as it's burning up, the impurities, this impurity is going into another vessel, right? And then that vessel, look at how the crown is there, because that's where the crown, that's where the root chakra is, right, in the king, right? And then that vessel, right, is pushing up the energies. Notice how this is the sun and the moon, okay? So the boiling of that hearth is giving energy to the upper worlds, okay? And these, instead of seeing it as only on the physical plane, it's in your spiritual stage of consciousness. So that when you ascend this ladder, the king, the queen, the cross, the ego, all these different things, and then you finally get beyond the stars, because this is obviously a small clip of this entire painting, but you get beyond the stars, then you're into this higher stage of consciousness, showing that alchemy itself wasn't just the art of turning metals into something that's indigestible. It was also the knowledge of how the body functions. And that if you became a master of alchemy, you became a master of the universe. And that's what I was saying before, and especially the Innerversity, And that's what I was saying before about being the master of something. So that way you can see through that all things are the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and close out here. I just want to let everyone know that there's also some stuff going on at Realm Dynamics. You can definitely check out the site. There's been some updates. We've also created a knowledge base there, especially for people who are experiencing some kind of infirmity. There's also an opportunity, again, we have the specialist program that's metamorphosizing. We're actually going to have another meeting here on Tuesday, so if you want to participate in that, it's a way for you to really start building current for yourself. I want people to understand that just the elements that are available, like if you understand Ayurveda enriches, it's the plant-based matter that's necessary to reestablish that part of your inner being that needs that vegetation and needs that diversity of vegetation and mineralization. The Ayurveda caters to that. We finally got the enzymes. I've linked up with a gentleman that's the 7th highest climber in the world, and he's developed this company that does enzymes. And he's done so much research. He even came down to Costa Rica, and he just demonstrating very simply how when you're processing proteins, metals, whatever, you're going to process 96% more with this particular formula. With enzymes in general, it's a good thing, but sometimes you have a hard time getting really good enzymes, especially enzymes that are made out of things that are not going to really throw off your system. And this, it's called Astrazyme, which is on Realm Dynamics, is quite amazing because, again, 96% more processing of protein, I hope I'm saying those numbers right, and even more things. And so that's a big thing because what happens is that all the toxins that would generally just stay because they're basically waiting in line, like the tubes are clogged, so it's like waiting in line. It's like, maybe I'll get down there. It helps to move that by eating that, right? And then also giving the body a nutrient that it can actually use because the enzyme digests that. So that's just a little insight on enzymes. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Cell salts is a major thing also because, or a little bit more later, but cell salts is a major thing because it actually allows you within a 6-month period to pinpoint hereditary issues. And that's as much as I really can say about it on air, but there is what we call a zodiacal diagnosis going on with cell salts, and then we have a ton of information on them, so just check that out on the Realm Dynamics site. I just want to say wholeness to everyone. There's been tons of people that have been involved just on mentally, spiritually, and physically. You can tell all beings are showing up for this massive level presenting information as long as we can. That's why I try to pack all these shows with all the information that you need, because you don't necessarily have to be attached to the network and being dependent on the network. You can come in, get your information, get your upgrade, and go and do what you do, oh mighty ones. And now, this is the time where I actually have to say that we're going to conclude. I just want to let everyone know, if you can support in certain ways, understand that this is a massive movement. So what we're really trying to do is bring this information to the globe, because the faster the people realize that this is going on, that they're magnificent beings and that they've really been underrated. Imagine China getting the drift of this. That it's not, and it tends, we use the word sometimes upgrades. People need to understand this, and I was explaining this to a good friend of mine. But if you can see yourself somewhere closer to the point of the Big Bang, which is when all of the beings were still collected within a few different kind of large elemental macro forms. If you can see yourself then, and then see yourself now, you can see how many times you've been divided and faceted and colored, shaped, polished by Lux to make you look the way that it wants you to be, right? Because it's all about the mirror. The mirror is the most powerful tool of magic and mysticism, because it actually allows a person to look in the mirror in the bathroom and to actually think that they're the person that they're looking at. So that's the one mirror. And then the next mirror is the black mirror, which is actually a TV, because then it gives input, meaning it tells the person what they should look like and what they should act like. So then between the person visiting the black mirror and then the white mirror, they can keep transforming themselves, meaning that the person can see in the black mirror a dress that they want, go buy that dress, then go look in the white mirror and see if they actually look like that. But then the whole thing be a game, because after all, the person is not who's in the mirror, nor what is generally on TV real, right? Most of the stuff that's on TV out there is an illusion. It's like the movie. It's not, they always say, this is not really happening. It's not really going on, because it's so mixed with fallacy. So realize what's going on. Higher levels of things have arrived today to you again. And most certainly we'll see you in the next 2 weeks. Wholeness and Balanced Vibration. Thank you for participating in Season 3 of Astral Quest. It's been realer than anything. And as I always say, it's not reality, it's actuality.